Hey everyone, welcome to Starmorph, where we talk about artificial intelligence and web development. Today I am excited to bring you an interview with Albert Mao, one of the co-founders of Vectorshift, which is a new AI startup in the Y-Combinator S-23 batch. And we're going to be talking a lot about Vectorshift's plans, how they're approaching the AI and LLM world. And so, yeah, thank you, Albert, for taking the time to come on today.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So okay, so first, so we got started a little bit, but diving back into it, I noticed when I was looking at Vectorshift, something that stuck out to me is both you and Alexander, the other co-founder, both have a financial background, and that's something we don't see all the time in the LLM space. So I'm very curious to hear how that is both going to shape your approach to AI and also maybe how you got from the financial world into the AI world.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you, Dylan, for having me on, and it's great to chat. Maybe
Absolutely.
I take a few steps back, and Alex and myself, we first met at Harvard as undergrads, and we ran a consulting business together. We grew it to a few million in revenue when we were juniors and seniors in college, and back then we were stats majors, we were CS majors. We were very interested in kind of the technical side of things, but we are very, applied. We wanted to actually build models and, be able to help, businesses actually transform and make an impact on them. And that's kind of why, after college, after school, we went into, more of a business setting. I was at McKinsey. My co-founder was at Blackstone. Blackstone was one of the largest private equity firms. Alex was in the data science group building models, many Gen AI models at scale for large businesses. I was at McKinsey helping large companies digitally transform.
Hmm.
And really what I think, you know, a unique perspective that we bring is, we've been inside these businesses. Like I've sat next to the CFO and the analyst and the VP of finance, the VP of sales, the VP of customer success, and seen the processes that they have. And it's not always as simple as, the problem sets that we do in school. It's actually never that simple. It's not just build a model and, it seems like it works and then it drives savings. There's all sorts of, you know, issues with companies ranging from data issues to data segregated across a business to different bureaucracies that you have to work through. So I think the unique perspective that we bring is I have spent hours piecing together on spreadsheets all this data, and we're building a platform with that in mind to be able to solve a lot of the inefficiency in businesses and within one platform to bring all this data together to be able to also work with the stakeholders to be able to bring this change of AI within their businesses. So, I think that's, a perspective that Alex and myself bring. And, I think AI is going to be one of the most transformative changes in a lifetime. But I think it's actually going to take longer than what people expect for large companies to adopt. And I think we want to be the platform to help companies do so.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before, and I definitely agree that, we have this exciting potential of this technology, but something I think people are really working on right now is, like you're saying, figuring out how to integrate LLMs in a way in business in a way that's not only like, wow, this is really cool what I can do, but okay, how are we actually going to implement this into like our day-to-day, you know, work like a stand-up or something like that that's really part of the business and is able to improve operations at the business. So I think, having someone like you guys who have that real business experience and then also are using that as a way to bring AI to that point where we really are integrated in the software businesses. So that's awesome. And something that stuck out to me that you just said was you were mentioning that at these bigger financial firms, and I guess I shouldn't be too surprised to hear this, but you mentioned that they were using generative AI. I was interested. I'm sure, I know there's a lot of quant trading and like algorithmic trading and things like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know how much you can say about that, but that's interesting that the bigger firms are
Yeah.
are using this too.
Yeah. Even, you saw in the news that McKinsey, it's not like financial but a consulting firm, they've built kind of a search engine, a generative AI search engine on all their internal documents. You know, Alex was working on internal, generative AI tools. Not sure how much, he's able to say, publicly, if he was here, but you can imagine, AI with its reasoning capabilities would be really great, in finance because of how many disparate data sources that you have to use. Say you're analyzing a company, you want to study its competitors, you want to study their, annual reports, their quarterly reports, their CEO transcripts that they talk about publicly, customer interviews. You might get data from the company itself, the sales data. You might want to study Glassdoor reviews. There's so much data, and to be able to parse through it, to analyze it, to make these comparisons, is something that LLMs are great at. So you can imagine a great use case there on how to use large language models in a financial way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't thought about it in the financial context, but that makes a lot of sense. And something I've been noticing recently with, more LLM chatbots and things like that coming out is personally, like anecdotally, when I use these chatbots now, I try to use the chatbot that's kind of in the niche of what I'm asking. So if I'm coding with Next.js, I might use the Vercel chatbot. If I'm coding with a Google API, I might use Bard. And I've just found that, since they're kind of closer or have a better relationship, maybe legally they're allowed to use more of that data, it has a better experience with its expertise. So I could see how, like a McKinsey LLM could just be super powered because this is a massive institution with a crazy large amount of intelligence and methodology for researching. And then, like you said, augmenting that with an LLM sounds very powerful. So taking that taking that into transitioning into Vectorshift, just to give a little bit of an intro, I saw on your landing page that Vectorshift, I think it has kind of a multi-pronged approach to what you'll be building. Um, so maybe or I'll give a little outline and then maybe you can elaborate. So I noticed that you have both a approach for AI agents. There's discussion about a marketplace for kind of specific functions, AI automations, and then also having an RAG system where you're bringing in different data sources, whether it's Google Cloud or Notion, and integrating that into a chatbot. So could you talk a little bit about what you guys are planning to build with Vectorshift? And yeah.
So like, when my co-founder and myself sat down to conceptualize the product, number one thing that was on our mind when we build everything is flexibility. And we want to create a platform that's very flexible, but is very deep, meaning there's a lot of features, but it's also very expansive and has many different functionalities for different use cases, right? And that's some of the ones that you mentioned are the things that we've been working really hard on, and we're actually doing kind of a launch very shortly, on. And you could think about it this way. I think this all ties back to our initial discussion where, you might have a non-technical stakeholder. They don't want to see the Python code. We have a Python SDK. But say, it's developers like to work in code, so they want to be able to do that. So we have a Python framework, but it also syncs into our no code. So there's interoperability between the two. You could build something in Python and you're going to be able to show it uh, in a no code framework. Now that is more friendly if you're working with a non-technical stakeholder. But even if you're trying to review the code, say with your engineering manager, it might be easier to do it actually through a no code visualizer. But that's kind of our two interfaces. But we have built kind of a whole suite of solutions around our initial two interfaces from made templates which are found in our marketplace to an ages framework, which we're actually releasing probably in beginning to mid-February, which will allow you to access all parts of our platform, but just through kind of AI agents that recursively calls itself, until it's able to solve a use case, to dozens of integrations and automations to have the right triggers and abilities to execute functionality across all your tools and data, right? So we want to be the all-in-one platform where you have a certain task that you want to automate. you can come into our platform. You can either use Python or no code. You can connect with your data. Then you can connect your tools. You could program through no code SDK what you want to do using RAG. And you could put an agent on it, or you could put a front end on it, like a chatbot or a Copilot interface, so that you could deliver the solution to the end users. So we want to be able to support kind of the end-to-end journey, but in a flexible way.
Okay, that makes sense. That yeah, it sounds like they're the different elements of this platform are kind of complementing each other. So you could have one person on your team use the no code, but still be contributing to the tech team that's using the Python SDK, or maybe you have, a marketing person tap into the agent part of the platform. So that sounds really cool that it's kind of an ecosystem that the different elements of it can build. And I definitely also resonate with I think you have to be flexible in the AI in this industry because things are developing so fast that that's something I've found with Starmorph is that just designing the company in a way that is ready to be evolving quickly and remain, resilient or flexible in the face of all the change happening, I think is super important too.
And just adding on to that, right? Even if you just every part of the ecosystem is changing so fast, but even if you just drill down to the models themselves, right? We're a model agnostic platform. You can use many different types of models on our platform. There's models that, you know, literally did not exist 6 months ago. We think there's going to be a world, especially in 1 or 2 years, where there's going to be dozens to hundreds of models. Then the models might be specialized into different things, uh, or there's different advantages for different use cases, from cost to latency to how many tokens you can put in. So we want to be agnostic, and we want to be able to create a very flexible platform where you can change models and compare models. You could compare prompts. You could do all the prototyping, but also deploy it. And mix and match the different providers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely agree. I think, like we were saying, I think helping people, there's so many tools that people need. Everyone needs resources, whether you're a developer or a leader at, not in tech, but in engaging with the LLMs and trying to get more productivity out of these tools. There, there's so much happening that, yeah, being able to pivot. And I actually find sometimes, there's a lot of speculation on Twitter about the GPT's capabilities changing, and I mean, undoubtedly they're making serious updates all the time. So I think being agnostic and having the flexibility to go back and forth between models, or maybe to go into an agent for a little bit and then go into a chatbot for a little bit, and looking at the website, I'm very excited for, I guess when we launch this, your first release will be out. So I'm very excited to see it because I think the website looks great, by the way, and the the feature, it looks very feature rich, like having the RAG that you can switch between Hugging Face or OpenAI or different platforms and LLMs is great. Being able to bring in the data sources from different sources where they might already be is amazing. So very excited for the launch. Congrats now that it's out once we launch this. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so diving a little more into Vectorshift, you mentioned, both of you, you and your founder are co-founder are coming from the finance world. Is that kind of the market that you want to integrate with? Do you want to go more into enterprise or more into building products for developers or teams, or what's your approach on who you want to use the tools and maybe the things that you want to help them solve?
Absolutely. I think our customers kind of range the gambit today. Today we work, for example, with large enterprise US-based tech companies to, even a European large conglomerate chemical company to, one-person agencies to startups. Maybe I could talk a little bit about different use cases. For example, our enterprise customers, for example, our European conglomerate, we're automating the writing of chemistry reports. So we've taken our AI automations platform, we've hooked into literally the laboratory data, the machines that are producing the data. And today, what a person has to do is literally a human has to read the data and produce these reports because they generate these reports for their clients, right? After they run these tests. We basically sat down with the person writing these reports step by step and programmed into the large language model what they do in writing these reports. It's a chain of dozens of large language models to produce these like a 10-page report. And we're basically deployed this now live, and now they run the experiment, and as soon as it's done, it's all the data gets fed into the large language models in this pipeline chain, and out comes the report at the end of the end that the technician can approve, and it automatically drafts an email that it can send out as well. Now to the kind of smaller kind of clients that we have, people can come on to our website at vectorshift.ai, and we have a pretty robust free plan, and you can create things ranging from chatbots to product recommendation systems to lead collection, bots, to report generations to marketing copy agents. So you just think, assistants to chatbots, to automations, um, you know, something that takes you a lot of time, moving leads between spreadsheets, for example, you know, people can break it down. You could think through kind of what are your steps on how to actually do that, and you could just program that in no code, through our platform.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that the pipeline approach, I know that's probably not new to the machine learning world, but I think, coming from the web development world myself and seeing the RAG tools come out a lot more, I think it's interesting seeing the different methodologies, like using RAG or using agents or using, yeah, the LLM directly or using an agentic way. But I think that the way you just described it makes a lot of sense, tying back into being agnostic again, because, what you just described for the medical company, I think people can see that that could be that is something that actively, creates more productivity in the business operations. But not only that, it could be applied to basically any company and any niche, when you break it down to these micro modular tasks that are getting run in a chain. And yeah, that's one of the really exciting things about this technology is that it can just be. I love the modular, kind of sequential approach to things
Sorry.
because yeah, it makes it very approachable and also maybe good for technical maintenance too.
Yeah. And like even like another quick example, like even we use Vectorshift all the time to automate all sorts of processes within our business. We're a relatively small company, right? We're founded in 2023. I've started a podcast. I use Vectorshift pipelines to generate LinkedIn posts, Twitter posts based on my podcast. From the titles of the YouTube videos to the thumbnails, to the actual YouTube descriptions, like every part that I basically have to continuously do because I'm producing a lot of podcast episodes. We have a pipeline for that. We have pipelines for when our engineers write code. We summarize the code and we put it into our Notion documentation, right? So a lot of these use cases, I think many different pieces of business can be really augmented with AI. And these are things that people maybe spend, 10, 15 minutes on, but these are recurring things. So if you have
Right.
pipelines that automatically run for all these different things, you can really focus on kind of what really matters in a business.
Yeah, that just made me think. It really feels like we're in, people, there's books and things, and people talk about sometimes we're maybe entering like the information age, like the industrial, a lot of the infrastructure that we have in the world right now is from the industrial age, and obviously like the tech companies that are, uh, starting to run things a lot more are maybe a symptom of us like entering the information age. And what you just said really like highlights that for me because it really feels now like we're kind of building the factories of, the information age. Like the same way you have a machine that, maybe produces one part of a wheel or has that assembly line. I mean, we've kind of had that, but with AI, it really feels like it's coming to life that we can build these assembly lines in the digital world. So that was just something that stuck out to me.
Right.
Um, so I'm curious, are you or your co-founder, are you guys coming from a coding technical background? You mentioned you have a small team, because I mean it's not a huge mystery why choosing Python is a great idea, but I would be curious to hear on kind of the tech approach, why maybe you chose to go with Python and maybe how you are framing, so maybe more for the developers how you're framing the library. Is it aligned with a specific framework, maybe like pandas, or do you have any specific kind of ideologies or programming paradigms that you're integrating into the platform? So, for example, if someone is watching this and they're a Flask developer or a Pandas developer, maybe they're a JavaScript developer, who would you say both the Python and the no code maybe platforms are suited for in the technical approach?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually interesting from the bottom of users, one of our largest user groups, I think, other than people who are, um, just small startups who are looking to automate processes. I think the second biggest user group that we have is actually developers. And it's actually because, putting together an LLM chain or like a RAG kind of framework, it's not like it's difficult, but if you're doing many of these and you're testing different prompts or testing different architectures, that's not easy to do. In a sense, it could be annoying. You really want to focus on the prompt. You don't want to set up everything around it. And I think that's where kind of our SDK and our no code, I think, is really beneficial to even developers because you come in, we solve, all the setup that you need to do. And all you need to do is you can, come in and just do kind of your MVP, and test things out and play around with things and optimize it until it works. We're actually, with our launch, releasing a new product line called Evaluations, where you can compare pipelines, you can compare prompts, you can compare architectures and models against one another, and you can upload for example, a list of test cases and run your pipeline across all these test cases, make adjustments, and iterate. Right. So we want to create this environment where you're able to do that. To kind of your first question around kind of our backgrounds, my co-founder and myself, we both studied computer science and statistics at Harvard, but I mainly handled all the non-coding related stuff, and my co-founder, he was the one who spent the first 4 months of the business coding everything from scratch. Now we have a team here in the U.S. We're based in New York, in our office, and we're shipping product, really fast. To also your question on why Python, I think one thing is I think it's the one that both me and my co-founder know best. But I think it's also pretty standard for startups to begin in Python because of how fast you can ship. And kind of in our stage, what really matters is how fast can we get product features out the door. We had literally 0 lines of code just 5-6 months ago, right? So we built this whole platform in 6 months. So yeah, I think if we did it in a more complex coding language, I don't think it would have been possible. So that's kind of why we stuck with Python. I'm not sure that would always be the case as we move on. We might have to migrate to a more performant language, for example. But at least for now and the near future, I think we want to maintain our shipping speed, and that's why Python makes, I think, a great choice for us.
That makes a lot of sense. So, kind of adding on to that, you mentioned that one of the priorities right now is, you guys are in rapid building mode. You're in Y Combinator, which is amazing. I'd love to hear more about what kind of your goals and plans are, and maybe the experience of, or maybe even a little background into how you got into Y Combinator and what the benefit of being in that program is, maybe for people that aren't too familiar with what Y Combinator is like, and yeah,
Yeah.
where because of that you guys are destined to head.
Yeah, maybe I'll take you guys on take you guys on a journey on what actually happened when we got into Y Combinator. Me and my co-founder, we quit our jobs Friday before Y Combinator started on Monday, right? And I remember 2 weeks before that was kind of our interview, and we interviewed and we got in, we got the acceptance letter, but they were like, you got to come to San Francisco in 2 weeks, and we're from New York, right? And we were scrambling, we were like calling houses, and we had to move all our stuff to San Francisco in a matter of 2 weeks.
Wow.
So that was probably one of the craziest 2 weeks of my life to get everything sorted. But what I think Y Combinator was really helpful for us was first it was an environment where it was startups all the time for 3 months. Like we did not think about anything other than startups for three to 4 months. We woke up like early in the morning, we slept super late, and we grinded every minute of the day. And I think that's really the focus that you need to get a company into the escape velocity, right? Like we did not have any lines of code, even 7 days into Y Combinator because we were building our desks, there was like a Y Combinator retreat. We like, we're doing all this stuff. We didn't have code 7 days into YC, and then it was time to buckle down for the remainder of the batch, right? And I think that level of focus is, I think, what I think you need for a startup to get kind of initial escape velocity, right? Because we came from large companies where everything was really structured. Like you kind of knew what you're gonna go do every day because your boss told you through this command line of command on what you're gonna go do. But now we had to like start from scratch and kind of push the startup forward. And I think being with other founders, doing the same thing was very helpful. But I think it was mainly just this environment of focus that I think is super helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that it's very relatable. I think escape velocity is a great word to use because sometimes it feels like it can kind of be one winner takes all in the software world because people talk about the amazing thing about software is you can distribute it infinitely for like no increase in like marginal cost, but that's also kind of a challenge for developers because it means if there's just a few amazing things out there. Like if there's a notion out there, it's hard to build something to that quality of software. It costs a lot of capital. It takes a lot of coding skill and all the other things. So I do feel like yeah, it's very relatable to especially with the speed of things coming out now. It does take a lot of focus. And I was in that period last year of kind of rapidly building and doing nothing but just waking up and on the computer for 12 hours researching LLMs they're building. So it's exciting to hear that. Oh, I think we might have lost them for a sec. Okay, we're back. We got cut out for a second, but Albert, you were just speaking about, the intensity of being in Y Combinator, getting up every day and just going for it 100%. And, that really resonates with me. I feel like that's the mode that I was in. I wish I was in that mode right now, but I was really in that mode last year when I was beginning to build out Starmorph. Just there's so much information and there's so much progress coming out with all of these tools that even just taking in and kind of synthesizing everything happening takes a lot of effort. Never mind, like you said, having that extreme focus to start building it. And, I commend you guys on how far of a push you've been able to build out in the first few months. So thank you very much for taking the time to come on today and tell us about the origins and the plan for Vectorshift. And we spoke a little bit before. Maybe we'll do another episode where we're kind of just less structured, talking about our experience in this space and what we're exploring. And being both from Boston, it's good to get in touch, and I look forward to talking with you more. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
No, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate the conversation and looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great.